Hey everyone, my name is Scarlett Lewis. I am the founder of the Choose Love movement, and I'm so excited to be here today with you all talking about changing an angry thought into a loving one. So, are you having a hard time with that? Because if you are totally in good company because it's not an easy thing to do. Uh, Lots of people have difficulty doing it. It's if it was easy, we wouldn't have a problem with it, right? And we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing out in the world. It's a simple concept, but simple isn't always easy. So if you're struggling a bit with this in the Choose Love movement and in the curriculum, uh, as by the way, an educator and a student, no worries because it takes effort. It takes effort to be happy. Happiness comes from the inside out, and we really have to work at it. And this is a big part of that. So I've prepared a mini workshop today for you to talk about literally strategies to change that angry thought into a loving thought that maybe you haven't thought of before. And if you have, maybe it is going to be a reminder because, by the way, we have to be reminded that it's possible. And by the way, just because you're here, you are ahead of the pack. A lot of people don't even know that it's a choice, and you have that awareness. You're just kind of thinking about how does this happen? And so wonderful. Let's start today. We're going to talk about changing an angry thought into a loving one repeatedly throughout the day using the choice moment model and the Choose Love formula taught exclusively through the Choose Love movement. Now, I wanted to show you a picture of my new vanity plate. Do you guys have one? You know the process to get one. So you have to fill out a form. You've got 3 choices and you only have a certain amount of letters. And of course, I wanted mine to say choose love in some sort of variation. So I made 3 attempts, and what I got back was chose love. Wah, wah. I was kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. How am I going to make that work? I have the choose love movement. However, it's actually perfect when I thought about it for a moment because even though I chose love yesterday, even though I chose love 5 minutes ago, life is this beautiful thing that it gives us the opportunity to choose from moment to moment how we thoughtfully respond. In fact, that is our superpower as human beings, is our thoughtful response. The ability to pause and get in between what's happening and our thoughtful response to choose how we respond. And a big part of that is choosing our thoughts. So, now do you have an ant invasion? I have a 1740 farmhouse, so I have different kinds of invasions. uh, but all right, so ant invasions, automatic negative thoughts. By the way, our brains are wired to have automatic negative thoughts. That is your brain's way of trying to keep you safe. There's nothing wrong with you. It is just called our negative bias. We're all born with it, and we just need to be aware of it. That's the main thing. And then have some skills and tools, which we're going to go over today, to be able to move through them onto the other side, to feel better, because our thoughts directly relate to how we feel, which then determine how we behave. So dealing with our ants, our ant problem, is a really, really good thing. So ants, automatic negative thoughts. And, to be pain free, we have to be able to control our thoughts. And when we control our thoughts, we have some control over our feelings and our perspective, by the way. And then, we behave better. We are the best version of ourselves. And that's what we really want. We know that thoughts are automatic, they just happen, and they lie. The lies are the ants, automatic negative uh, thoughts, automatic negative thoughts. When I say they lie, sometimes they give us worst case scenario. Sometimes the perspective isn't accurate. We have to question our thoughts. We have to be aware of them and question them and choose our thoughts so that we can be the best version of ourselves. You don't have to believe every thought that you have. And by the way, we're going to work on throughout this presentation. It's not a long presentation, but we're going to train our internal ant eater to eradicate our ants. And so there are different types of ants that we have. You say, oh my gosh, they're automatic. What does she mean by that? Well, you've got thoughts that are all or nothing. Like when you're thinking or saying these words, all, never, everyone, every time, everything, always, whenever I say that thought, ooh, I know to take a step back, because usually something is not always, a person is not always like that. And so that's an ant. That's an automatic negative thought. A comparison thoughts. And that's a really big deal now with kids and social media. And by the way, ourselves as well. Comparing ourselves, and our brains they do this automatically. And guess what? We usually measure up less than, because a lot of times we're comparing to an ideal that's not even real, especially if it's on our cell phone. Our brain tends to just look at the bad, or at least focus on the bad. That's our negative bias. That's our brain's way of keeping us safe. So we kind of ignore the good and we focus on the bad. We actually do this in the way that we try to solve problems too. Like if you think about a body part that's giving you problems, you might say, oh, that's my bad knee. Oh, no. That knee might be hurt. It might be the knee that's healing. We got to remember that, we don't want to focus on the bad. Guilting, should, must, ought, or have to, all those kind of words make us feel bad. Labeling ourselves or someone else, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a jerk. What an idiot I am. Whoa, gosh, you know what? Those words have a frequency and it's impacting every cell in our body. Just be aware that you're doing it and stop, because every time you use a different word, I'm just trying in this situation. I'm learning and growing. You are actually impacting every cell in your body. There's a fortune telling ant that predicts doom and gloom. There's a mind reading ant that you're predicting what somebody else will say, and you usually predict negative. If only whatever, I'd be happier in the past or the future. If only something hadn't happened, I'd be a different person, right? Blaming, all these are different ant types, and all of these lead to unhappiness. And by the way, we can eradicate all of these ants. That's what we're working on. Now, the whole Choose Love movement started with the loss of my son, Jesse. And I say that the Choose Love movement started at his funeral when I got up to speak. And I said it was an angry thought that caused the entire tragedy. And I pictured Adam Lanza as a little boy having an angry thought without the skills, tools, or nurturing environment to manage that thought. So that thought continued. It was layered with other ants, other hurts, grievances, and it eventually became violence. But it doesn't have to eventually become violence, of course, because a thought can be changed. And by the way, it's not just violence these ants create, it's substance abuse, it's mental illness, it's all sorts of negative things. So a thought can be changed. This is what we're working on today. So I asked the congregation, start thinking about what you think about and choose a loving thought over an angry thought. So by the way, everybody went out to the four corners of the United States and they started calling me, emailing me, texting me about a week later saying that one simple act had completely changed their life. So I knew that I was onto something, and it all started with thoughts. And of course, this is the cognitive triangle. Our thoughts directly relate to how we feel, which then in turn determines our behavior. And we have control over our thoughts. So kind, loving, caring, compassionate thoughts feel good. That's reflected in how we show up in our relationships. Angry, hateful, resentful thoughts, they feel bad. And that is also reflected in our behavior. We can reverse engineer this cognitive triangle. If someone is behaving badly or saying not nice things, you know that they're not feeling well, and you know that they're not thinking well. But we have to think about what we can control, and that's our thoughts. So even Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor and now a Stoic, somebody that's considered very wise, whose wisdom has lasted throughout the generations, said, our life is what our thoughts make it. So we know that paying attention is the purest form of love. And we need to start really paying attention to our thoughts. What are we thinking about? And by the way, it takes effort. It's not like you don't pay attention as you're going, you're busy and you're distracted all day long. You literally need to pause and think about what you're thinking about. You could put a little reminder on your phone every hour, pause, think about what you're thinking about. Because only then do you know you can put your anteater into action, your strategies that we're going to go over today. So we know, just a little recap, because I know that you all know this, every thought we have impacts us on a cellular level. And we have tens of thousands of thoughts every single day, 70 to 80% of which are negative. So the majority of our thoughts every day are negative, and over 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So they're the same negative thoughts roiling over in our brain over and over. Why? Because our brains just want to keep us safe. So instead of focusing on a saber-toothed tiger, I mean, we really don't have to worry too much about our physical safety every day. By the way, this doesn't take away from that. But what our brains have developed to do, instead of looking out for our physical safety, it looks for negativity. It scans for negativity. So that's our focus. And so every single thought we have either leads us to languishing or flourishing. So we want to flourish. We want to thrive. We want to be the best version of ourselves. And that's this journey in this presentation right now. So the incredible thing is this. So right now, by the way, if you really do think that the majority of your thoughts every day are negative and repetitive, it's okay. You have super highways that are wired in your brain with that going on. But every time you change a thought from negative to positive, you are rewiring your brain towards positivity, towards love, and pruning from the fear channels. This is literally called neuroplasticity. Our brains can change. If you're sitting there going, well, you know what? I've been negative my whole life and it's just it is what it is. No, it doesn't have to be. Every small change you make in your thoughts is rewiring your brain. And so choosing love over fear becomes a little bit easier every time you do that. Remember, anger, hatred, resentment, frustration, a mask for fear. So literally, we're either choosing love or fear. And so when you're choosing love, you are pruning from your fear channels and you are widening the love channels. It's so exciting. So by the way, our negative bias can lead to lack of self-worth, how we value ourselves, self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves, as well as self-confidence, how we feel about our abilities. These negative thoughts, literally, like if you think about your internal dialogue, what is your brain telling you? Oh, don't try that. Oh, you know what? Those people are much better at it. You don't need to do it. You don't know enough. You are not enough. Why does your brain do that? And by the way, it's happening with kids, but it's happening with you too. It does it because it wants to keep you safe. It wants to keep us in our comfort zone where we won't fail, where we won't get hurt. Remember, our brain wants to keep us safe, not just physically, but emotionally as well. So that's just our brain's way of keeping us safe. And we need to talk back to our brain. We need to say, hey, brain, thank you so much for trying to keep me safe. I know what you're trying to do, but guess what? I got this. However, that takes self-esteem. That takes loving ourselves. That's why the most important lesson that we can learn in life is loving ourselves, loving and accepting ourselves, to where we can talk back to those thoughts, to where we don't take them personally, to where we can question those thoughts and say, come on, brain, I know that I am more than enough. I know that I am worthy. I know you're just trying to keep me safe, and that's okay, but I got this. That means taking control of our inner dialogue, the narrative that's going on in our mind. And that means thinking about what we think about is exactly how the Choose Love movement started. Thinking about what we think about and really, really focusing on that narrative and turning it from negative to positive. It is so important because research shows us that is the foundation of good health, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. It all starts with our thoughts. And remember, our mind is like a garden. I travel a lot. I'm a speaker, so I go to schools and I go to conferences all over the world. Sometimes I'm away for a week at a time. And I have this beautiful garden in the backyard. And every year I plant it. And I'm so excited. I plant flowers and vegetables. But you know what? If I'm gone for about a week and there's just a perfect amount of sun and rain, when I get back and nobody's tended my garden, those weeds are choking out the flowers and the vegetables. Like sometimes if I'm gone for 2 weeks, I can't even find the flowers or vegetables. They're just the weeds have completely taken over. That's exactly like our thoughts. Our thoughts are the seeds that we plant, and we can grow flowers or we can grow weeds. We grow weeds through our negativity. We have to pull those weeds. We got to plant the seeds of positive thoughts. Those are affirmations, saying the I am statements, not I was, not I will. I am more than enough. I am worthy. I can do this. I mean, even writing those 3 statements down and just putting them on your computer, putting them on the door. I had positive affirmations all over my house. Remember, we are planting seeds for our thoughts, and we're going to have the negative thoughts. Don't get down on yourself. That's just your brain's way of keeping you safe. But you know what? You need to confront those thoughts and you need to pull them. You need to replace them with positive thoughts. And this directly implicates how we feel about ourselves, as well as how we feel about what we can accomplish. So we know our brain's number one job is to keep us safe. Fear sells. So if there's a fearful headline, we're going to be going to that. And we just have to realize that, right? This is my mom the day after she broke her femur bone and had major surgery. So I visited her, and I'm showing you this because the story goes that I got there the next morning, and this is the first visit from the PT, the physical therapist. And he's like, okay, Mrs. Lewis, we're going to put a belt behind you. We're going to pull you up and you're going to stand, which seemed kind of impossible to both of us. But as she's laying there, she's feeling okay because she's not moving. And he reaches over to touch not even her healing leg, but the other leg. And she goes, oh my God, please stop. It hurts so badly. But he hadn't even touched her. And this is just kind of an example of how fear exacerbates pain. It makes it worse. And it also inhibits our healing. That's why choosing love is so, so important. Being grounded, being in the present moment, being aware of our breathing, getting curious about what's going on is all part of it. We know that when we choose love, it unites us. And we know that fear divides. You can look out around you and see what's going on in our world to realize that. And the beautiful thing is, love is a choice in every instance, interaction, circumstance, and situation. Love is a choice that we can make, which is beautiful. It's our superpower. And we can use the formula and the choice moment model to do that. Now, you know the Lao Tzu quote, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become action. Watch your action, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character because it becomes your destiny. Where does it all start? With our thoughts, right? We know we can't always choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we thoughtfully respond, and we want to choose love in our thoughts. And we can choose. That's our personal power as human beings. Here is this formula that you know so well. Courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion in action. This is how it literally brings something called our locus, our location of our personal power back inside of us. When we have an internal locus of control, we're coming from a place of love. And that literally means that we believe that we have the power to create the positive change necessary to have a better future. That's the definition of hope. We feel that we can do this, right? When your locus of control is outside of you, you're coming from a place of fear. So what does that look like? It looks like you think things are happening to you, not for you. You think you blame other people for what's happening to you. You feel helpless in your life. Helplessness can lead to victimization. Victimization can lead to hopelessness. Hopelessness is the single most consistent factor in suicides and violence. So we really want to be personally empowered and have that locus of control inside of us. How do we do it? Through the formula. We start with courage, the courage to be present, the courage to think about what we're thinking about. We use gratitude to shift the focus of our lens from negative to positive. This fortifies us from the inside out to be able to forgive. Forgiveness lets us move past, beyond, learn from, grow through, and be strengthened by painful events. And then compassion is when we can go beyond our distraction and busyness, ourselves, an internal focus, and have an external focus on other people and take what we've learned and use it to help other people. We're all such glorious, incredible people. We have this a unique lens. We are the only person that can tell our story and use what we've learned to help other people. We are one in trillions and trillions, and we're put on this earth for a reason. We are each unique, amazing people, and this formula can help us refine and reframe the hard stuff into gold that we can then share with others. So here's the first strategy: using courage and the choice moment model. That brave breath is so important. That, kids' favorite thing, literally taking a breath. That is the number one strategy across the board, taking a breath, because the breath is what stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us down. It enables us to access that prefrontal cortex where our highest and best self is. And also the brake on our instinctual reactions. It helps us be the best version of ourselves. So I love this quote by Brene Brown: you can choose courage or you can choose comfort, but you can't have both. So I talked earlier about getting out of your comfort zone into our growth zone. That's when we learn, grow, and are strengthened and become the best version of ourselves. So I always like to say, be curious, not furious. Curious, not furious. Be fascinated, not frustrated. Those are my two favorite sayings. And we can do that by getting into the choice moment. That is the space in between what's happening and our response. And we only have two choices, by the way, in this choice moment. We can react. Reacting doesn't take a lot of thought at all. We're reacting from habit or memory. And by the way, that works for the majority of the day. A lot of times we do just react in things. We do it out of habit or memory. Our brain likes us to react because then it conserves brain power. And so to reward us, it gives us a quick hit of dopamine, that feel good neurotransmitter. The problem with dopamine is that it never lasts and it always leaves us wanting more. The other option, and by the way, this is the one that we need to use when we're confronted with a situation that's difficult, like maybe somebody is not being kind to us, or maybe there's some sort of drama going on, something is an adversity. Then we really need our choice moment, which is where we pause in between whatever is happening and our thoughtful response. Now, you remember that all of the data that comes in through our five senses is filtered through our fear center first. So our fear center determines whether it is basically harmful, but that's physically or emotionally. And so if they think it's harmful, like even words, then it might put you into freeze, fight, or flight. And then you're not in control. Your fear center is, and you're reacting and you're saying something maybe not kind back, right? And by the way, that's the way our brain is wired. It wants to defend you figuratively or maybe literally. But most of the time our lives aren't in danger. But maybe our feelings are, right? But that's the time when we can rise to the occasion and be the best version of ourselves. And so you get into that choice moment, which is the pause. It's taking a brave breath. It's getting curious about what is happening. It's questioning, why is this person behaving that way or saying this or acting in this way, or what happened to them? It's getting curious. It's giving time for that information to get to your prefrontal cortex where you can thoughtfully respond with love. And by the way, that is literally a heroic choice, right? Because our brains are wired to defend. We need the pause. We need the curiosity so that we can consider that other person's point of pain. So, in other words, if somebody, a child, an adult is not behaving well, we know that they're not feeling well. We know they're not thinking well. We know hurt people hurt people. So we pause and we go, okay, I know who is the boss of this person. It's their fear center. And obviously, they're struggling in some way. That helps us to be able to thoughtfully respond with love. And if you look over there, you see the familiar formula. So it does take courage to pause anyway, but we might, forgive because we know that they're going through a hard time. And then we might thoughtfully respond with compassion. Hey, what's going on? Oh, they tell the story of difficulty, and you say, hey, how can I help? I want to do everything in my power to help. And then, the gratitude might even come later. When you reflect back and you go, wow, I'm grateful for that situation because it was difficult, but I got to use the choice moment. I got to start to rewire my brain, and I moved through it, and I was the highest and best self. I have gratitude for myself. When you do thoughtfully respond with love, you get a lasting lift. You see lasting lift there. Well, you get a dose as an acronym of nurturing, healing love. You get dopamine. This is what you get. Oxytocin, which is the love hormone. You get serotonin, your body's natural mood stabilizer. You get endorphins, your body's natural painkillers. So you literally get a lasting lift of feeling good and powerful when you thoughtfully respond with love. Wow, you are in control when you thoughtfully respond with love. All right, strategy number 2, using gratitude to reframe. Look, I have the brave breath. We do gratitude breaths too, but I put the brave breath there because this takes a lot of bravery, by the way, to choose a loving thought over an angry thought. Now, you know that we use gratitude as the great mind shifter to shift from negative to positive. We know that a regular practice of that fortifies us to better use the choice moment model, by the way, and move through adversity with strength and grace. So make sure that in your classes, in your own life, you are doing a practice of gratitude. But we really want to go from grumpy to grateful, right? Because if we're not grateful, if we're feeling put upon, overwhelmed, we're going to be grumpy. Why? Because there's that little fearful, put upon type feeling, and it makes us grumpy, right? So one strategy is to assume goodwill in other people. Somebody says something, makes an off comment. Always assume that the people around you, especially your coworkers, have goodwill. And of course, even if they don't, that's their problem, not yours, right? So, and that you have goodwill. That helps you go from grumpy to grateful. And it might be a delayed response, but that's okay. I think something really important to understand is the difference between emotions and feelings. So emotions come from the body, feelings come from the mind. So if somebody says something to you that is off-putting, you're going to react with your emotions. Your emotions are going to right away. Your brain goes right into defensive mode, and you have a flash of anger. That's not something that you can control. That's okay. I mean, that's what happens. But it's the thoughts that become feelings about that either keep that anger going or let it go. And so this is really where your point of power is, between emotion and feeling. Remember that. Like if you get the flush in the face, the hair on the back of the head standing up, that's okay. That's an emotion. But your thoughts and feelings are what control the emotions. And this is something that we teach in high school. It's a little bit elevated learning, but it's a really important concept that, by the way, a lot of people don't know. Emotions versus feelings. Emotions are a biochemical reaction that can be measured by blood flow and brain activity, right? Feelings are a mental process that can't be measured. Emotions are mostly the same universally. We have the 6 or so basic emotions. Feelings are how we experience any sensation. Um, Emotions create visible and noticeable physical changes, including increased heart rate and breathing. And feelings can be difficult to notice. I can be having a feeling here and you would never know it. But Jill Bolte Taylor, who wrote an incredible book, My Stroke of Genius, I think, and she has this 90-second rule. So she's a neuroscientist, and she says that when you have that emotion, that initial response, right, where you're pausing through and getting curious about, right, in that situation, it only lasts 90 seconds. That anger literally is a chemical wash over your brain. That emotion only lasts for 90 seconds. If you can pause through that 90 seconds, that emotional chemical wash will be gone. Then it's your thoughts and feelings that either keep it going or let it go, right? The thoughts and feelings. Really important to understand that. That's the second strategy. So the pausing in that choice moment, getting curious, deciding how you're going to thoughtfully respond with love, and thinking about, their point of pain, all helps that 90 seconds move through and gives time for your brain to process through your fear center to your prefrontal cortex, where you can thoughtfully respond with love. Okay, strategy number 3, using forgiveness to shift our perspective. Remember, I keep reminding my son this: forgiveness is the best revenge, because when you forgive, it sets you free. If you're angry at anybody right now, they have power over you. They have power over your thoughts that directly impact how you feel and behave. Forgiveness is when you take your personal power back. I don't know about you, but I don't want to let anybody who is upsetting me have any control over me. And certainly in my own story with, losing my son to violence, I did not want the perpetrator to have any control over me. I was determined not to be another victim. And of course, I wanted to model that for my surviving son. And forgiveness is the only way that I could do that. So forgiveness is literally looking at what you can control, which is only yourself. You can't control other people or what other people do, but you can control yourself. So you choose to just let it go, because you do not want that other person to have any control over you. And by the way, if you're choosing love, if you're practicing gratitude, if you're saying your affirmations, I am enough, I am worthy, I can do this, then you are increasing your self-esteem, which is really loving and accepting yourself. And it helps you not to take the offense personally. I mean, literally, if somebody walks up to you and says, you're a jerk, if you feel good about yourself, you kind of go, wow, okay, pause. I wonder what's going on with that person that they would say that, because I know that I'm a good person. So this is not a reflection of me. It's a reflection of them. So you can see that that helps you not to be triggered, and it helps you literally to deflect the negativity back onto the person. Thoughtfully respond with love, help them out. They obviously need help, right? Strategy number 4, using compassion in action to distance yourself from the hurt. So I say, remember, I said this before, be curious, not furious, be fascinated instead of frustrated. Those are things that maybe you should write down, right? Because compassion in action helps us. You can have it for yourself and you can have it for other people. By the way, forgiveness is really important for yourself too. And the hardest thing to do is to forgive yourself. Cut that cord that attaches you to pain. Do it right now. Make the choice, let it go. But in compassion too, it's having the courage to step outside of whatever's going on with you to help somebody else. When we do that, we can become fascinated instead of frustrated. So remember the choose love formula: courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion in action. Some of what might get in the way, by the way, is toxic rumination, because our thoughts are, can be negative. And that's the propensity that our brain has to try to keep us safe. We can pull up thoughts from the past, painful events. Do you ever do that? You're driving and then all of a sudden this thought pops in your head and you're like, yeah, that makes me mad. Or even fearing for the future and over and over and over again, that's toxic rumination. And so the formula helps you move through that, because you definitely do not want to do that. And another strategy, which is really cool, is really kind of getting curious and asking yourself questions about your thoughts. So if there are thoughts that are kind of toxic and you can't move through them, try this. Is it true? Is the thought true? Is it absolutely true? How does the thought make you feel and act? What's the outcome of the thought? How would I feel without the thought? How would I act? How would it feel to have a different thought? And what's the opposite of the thought that's bothering me? So I'm just as an example, I'm going to talk about Sammy and Chris. So Sammy is Chris's daughter, and Sammy died of leukemia. And Chris was her caretaker for 2 years, and they really struggled throughout that 2 years. So Chris was really struggling after her daughter died, as you can imagine. And she was actually planning on committing suicide. She was really not doing well. She was asked this series of questions by Dr. Amen, who's a neurologist. He's actually, I go to the practice, so I think he's awesome, which is why I wanted to share this. So he's talking to Chris, and he's saying, what's your belief? And she's saying, oh, well, it's my fault, right? That Sammy died. Remember the ants, the guilt beating, the blame. And Dr. Amen asked her, is it true? And she said, well, I don't know. And well, is it absolutely true that it's your fault that your daughter died? Well, no. How does that thought make you feel? Well, awful, depressed, like I want to die. How does the thought make you act? Well, suicidal. Well, what's the outcome of the thought? Well, I'm suffering. How would you feel without the thought? Well, obviously I'd feel better. How would you act? Well, probably like myself before Sammy died. What's the outcome of not having the thought? Well, I'd be free from guilt. So what's the opposite of the thought that's bothering you? It's not my fault that Sammy died. I did everything I could to help her. Wow. Let's go back to question number one. Was her original thought true? No, it wasn't true. She was toxically ruminating over a thought that wasn't even true. So I just wanted to share this with you because it was very powerful for me. When you can't move past a thought that's very painful to you, go through this questioning process and change the thought, and then use it as an affirmation. Really, really powerful. So here's your call to action. Think about what you think about. Pause in the choice moment and get curious. Give your prefrontal cortex time to come online. Think about the point of pain of that other person, and remember that emotions are a chemical wash. They only last for 90 seconds. And if you pause, you can thoughtfully respond with love. That's when you're your highest and best self. That's when you feel the best. That's when you are in control of the situation. Otherwise, you're allowing the other person to control the situation. Then use courage to take your personal power back and thoughtfully respond with love, using the Choose Love formula and the choice moment model. I'd love to hear how this goes for you. If you have any questions at all, please email me directly, Scarlett with 2 T's at jessieLewisChooseLove.org. I love you all. Thank you so much for all the hard work, everything that you do for everyone. And let's work together. We're in this together to be the highest and best version of ourselves. And of course, we're modeling this for our kids, for our students, and just that awareness helps us rise to the occasion. So thank you for choosing love. See you soon.